Hi all. We're just going to wait a few minutes to let everyone else join, and then I'll jump straight in and start the presentation. Okay, it looks like we've got quite a few people who have joined the session, so I'll get started. Hi everyone, my name is Luke Hambley. I'm the product manager at Verlata Consulting, and today I'll be taking you through Viewpoint, which is our Actionstep business intelligence suite that we've developed in Power BI. And today we'll be going through a short PowerPoint presentation just to give you a bit of background, and then I'll be going through a demonstration of the product itself. We will have some time at the end for some questions, but please add them to the chat as we go through. I'll be happy to answer some of those, and if we don't have enough time, we will send some follow-up emails and answer those questions. We'll also be sending through some poll questions throughout the webinar. They'll come up at a few different intervals between different parts of the session. And it'd be great if you could answer those polls just to give us a bit more information about who's joined our session. And hopefully we can follow up with some of your questions. Okay, great. So in this webinar, we'll be going through a Viewpoint. So what we classify Viewpoint as transforming your Actionstep data into business intelligence. But essentially what we're looking at is a reporting suite. So what I'll be going through first is just a bit of background on Verlata ourselves, and then we'll be going into what Viewpoint is itself. I've got a few client testimonials just to show you, and then we'll jump straight into the demonstration. And I'll be looking at not only the Viewpoint suite, but also some of our custom reporting options, which we've got a few examples of those, and then finally have some time for some questions. So, Verlata Consulting. So we are legal software consultants, and we primarily specialize in the implementation, delivery, and training of legal software solutions. So we work mostly with law firms and in-house legal departments, though we do have some clients outside of those areas. And we are experts in Actionstep. In fact, we've been an Actionstep Global Platinum Partner, and we've been implementing Actionstep for over 6 years, and we have offices all over the world. We've also developed our own products, and Viewpoint is one of those key products, as well as products that fit with net documents like Thimble. So Viewpoint, we classify that as an interactive set of dashboards and reports, which is designed to give you, that really high-level bird's eye view of your firm. And you can also then drill through and deep dive into different data points as well. So all the data is drawn directly from Actionstep, including any custom data collections that you may have set up. So we can do some slide amendments where necessary. And we can draw from other data sources where required, things like budgets and stuff like that. So all the reports have been developed over the past few years based on our clients' needs and feedback. And we are continually looking at improving our reports and our suite to better suit our clients' needs. All our reports are stored in the cloud. It's Power BI service, which is available via the browser, which means you can access them anywhere at any time. And all of the data is securely stored, encrypted, and you can actually limit report access to particular people or staff members within your organization if required. So just some brief client testimonials for you to quickly have a look at from two of our favorite clients, Wakefields and Coghlan Duffy, where we've actually set up Viewpoint for each of those clients and gone through a process of developing some custom reports as well. And we've gotten some very good feedback on those projects. Great, I can see that a poll has just popped up, so it'd be great if you could answer that. All right, I don't like to stay too long in a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to jump straight into the demonstration and share my screen so you can see what Viewpoint is all about. Okay, great. So this is Viewpoint by Verlata. So what you can see here is a dashboard. And as you can see, we're also in Microsoft Edge, but you can load it up any browser. We find that Chrome and Edge work the best. And as I said, what you're seeing here is a dashboard, which is a collation of lots of different visuals from different reports within the suite. And so this is designed to be this sort of high-level management style dashboard that could be incredibly useful for those monthly team meetings or for any other sort of regular get together where you want to look at your overall financial performance. In this case, we are drawing from quite a few different reports. We have over 16 reports in our suite with over 70 pages within those collective reports with hundreds of different calculations. And so all you're seeing here is just a small selection of those visuals. And the way we work with you once we've had the Viewpoint suite set up for you is that we will sit down and look at what metrics and visuals are most important to you for your dashboards, and then we can construct it accordingly. So in this case, we've taken a bit of everything so that you can see the kind of data that's available within the Viewpoint suite. So for example, we've got different elements of WIP, fees, write-offs, collections, debtors, which includes total figures, as well as visuals like bar graphs, column graphs, pie graphs, and line graphs and things like that. We've also got these budget gauges so that you can compare your actuals versus your budgets, and you can see we're looking at them across the financial year. You can see different things to do with how your matter management, as in matters that you've opened, new clients that you've brought on board, any matters that you've closed, as well as looking at aged groupings, things like WIP and debtors, where you will look at specifically at how old those figures are. These dashboards can be customized, as I said, so we can put in different visuals, but we can also customize what kind of filters are applied. So over to the left here, you can see that this is our navigation page. And you can see here that this one is the overview for the current financial year. So all the data is just restricted to the current financial year. Obviously, things like WIP and debtors are taken into account, but that's all the data is filtered there. We've also got another sort of standard dashboard that we include, which is an overview of last financial year. So it gives you the ability to compare. And I think that's especially important when you've just crossed that threshold, which we have here in Australia from one financial year to the next. These aren't the only filters we can apply. We can also look at applying filters based on other sort of groupings like practice areas, like teams, or even clients. So maybe you're a firm which has one particular client that takes up the majority of your workload. We could set up a dashboard that fits just that particular client. So these are the dashboards that we can build. I'm now going to move on to some of the actual reports that are available. So we've classified our 16 reports into 4 different sections. For a start, we've got our matter reports, then our time recording, our WIP, and our fees and invoicing. And so this allows you to quickly and easily move and navigate between the different reports. Within each of these, obviously, we have our different reports. So there's 5 reports sitting in our matter reports section. And if you expand out one of these, for example, the matter estimates report here, you can see the pages that are available within that report. All of our reports have an About This Report page included, which allows you to see exactly what's going on in that report, including a description of the report itself and what it's measuring, as well as what features it includes, which I'll be going through in this webinar. It also includes a list of the key definitions, as well as a description of the calculations, key calculations that are used as well. So if you ever get a bit lost about what's being shown on your report, you can always come to this page and get a better understanding of what calculations are being done and what we mean when we use certain terms or topics. Jumping into a report itself. So this is the new clients report. What we're looking here is all the new clients that you've brought on board. From an action step perspective, we're looking at when the first matter has been opened for a new client and the client has been put within the parties for that matter. So here we're looking at a table of the first matters that have been created. We have quite a few tables throughout our reports, and the tables are designed to give you that sort of more granular look at that, row by row level of your data. And they work in a similar way to most tables in that you can sort them by each column. So for example, I can do it by the first date opened. You can change the size of the columns, and you can obviously scroll up and down as well. Each table can also be exported to Excel. So if you see a table within a report, you can go up to the top right corner of the table, select the more options, and export that data to Excel. And then that gives you the ability to actually play around with your data a bit further, manipulate it, do your own figures, do your own calculations, whatever you want to do from that perspective. The other things you see on this screen are visuals, or graphs. So in this case, we have a couple of bar graphs and column graphs, and we're looking at different groupings for the new clients. So we have matter type, which is the different matter types that are set up within Actionstep. We can group by those. We can also group by what we call practice area or a matter type grouping, provided you've set that sort of structure up within your Actionstep. We've got a new clients by the assigned to or the person responsible for the matter. This could be changed to a different party if required, but by default, we do it based on the assigned to or the person who created the matter. And we can also do it across different for different date ranges. So our standard is the financial year. In this case, we've set up in the Australian financial year of July to June, but we can obviously vary that depending on where you're located and what the financial year is for your jurisdiction. So for example, we could set it up to go from April to March, or we could set it up from January to December, depending on where you are. Each of the visuals within a page are linked together. So for example, in this bar graph, I have four new clients that are within the family law matter type. If I select that, it's actually going to filter all other visuals on the page. So you can see now I can see the four matters that make up, the four clients, I should say, that make up those four, as well as when they were created and who they're assigned to, just based on that. And you can just click to refresh that. So that's one way of sort of filtering the data on the screen, a bit of interactivity. Down the left-hand side, we also have slices. So that's a Power BI terminology, or essentially they're filters. Obviously, I've got it on the 2022 financial year, mainly because we don't have much data for 2023 yet. So we'll sit it on there. But you can obviously change that. You could also filter down to a particular month, a particular assigned to person, or a particular matter type. We've designed our reports to have this sort of consistent theme and consistent structure. So you always see your filters down the left-hand side. And we always have a little bit of space left over if you want to add a custom filter of some form, or you want to bring a different filter that's already available on the page onto that report. Going on, I'll just move on to our new matters report. It's got a few extra features available. Within this report, we have obviously the same sort of graphs and tables, but we also have this action step icon. Now, what this means is that it'll be linked to a table, usually a matter related table, and we are looking at adding it into more of the reports in the future. But what this allows us to do is provide a direct link between our Viewpoint report and Actionstep itself. So I can actually select a matter within this table. You can see it's going to filter all of my other visuals, but then I can actually hover over this link, click on the action step icon, and it's actually going to take me directly to that matter within Actionstep. And so that gives us that quick little, back and forth, and it's just opened up a new tab. So I can just click to go back to my Viewpoint report. There's obviously a couple of other filters, so you can see another filter showing whether or not the status of the report is active or closed within that matter report. Some of our other reports, I won't go through every report in detail, but we also have a closed matters report so that you can see all of your closed matters. We have a matter estimates report where we're looking specifically at fee estimates and whether or not you have met those fee estimates or gone above them. What we do is we look at your amount quoted or your fee estimate. We calculate your current WIP balance and fees billed for that matter, and then we give you an idea of whether or not you're over or under that quote. Looks like we've gone well over in this case. This is demo data, obviously, but if I scroll down, you'll see some more realistic figures within this table. A matter status report is designed to look at all of your open matters. And it's designed to look at across different metrics so that you can look at, what is your current matter situation within Actionstep. So this includes, looking at the history of your matters and how they've been opened, and matter details, so looking at specific matters and what their categories and the matter types, how long they've been open, things like that, as well as a matter activity graph as well, where we're actually looking at how long it's been since these matters have actually been active. So as in, how long has it been since a time entry has been created or an invoice has been billed, or some sort of edit has been made. And so this allows you to track and see whether or not you're either not touching your matters, whether someone needs to look and clean up their matters. So one particular person, for example, needs to look at cleaning up their matters, or whether or not you have a good and sufficient open closure sort of process. As an example, you can see that there is one matter here that is sitting in red, and that has had no activity for over 120 plus days. And so I can hover over that and actually see a little tooltip, and that gives me a bit of information about that. So we can see that it's been assigned to Kelly, has had no activity for 120 plus days, and it consists of one matter in this case. But it also has a little tooltip there that says right-click to drill through. And so what I can do here is I can actually right-click on the column itself and go down to drill through to the matter detail screen. And this opens up our drill through. And so what this does is this takes any filters that have been applied and brings it through into a tab table that we've created for the report, which has all of the matter details for that particular matter that I've selected. And so there's a number of these drill throughs throughout the reporting suite on different reports. This is just one example of that. And all of them have this little arrow to go back to your original report as well. So those are our matter reports. We have two time recording reports that are available. So we have our time recording overview. Now here's when we're looking at, how much time has been recorded, billable, non-billable, invoiced, not invoiced. And this allows you to keep track of how you're going with your billable hours versus your billable hour budget. So what I've got here is a graph or a gauge which looks at your billable hours versus that budget for the whole firm, as well as the ability to filter down by individuals as well. So for example, I could go to an individual fee earner and I can see their individual billable hours for the financial year. So the budgets themselves are drawn from Actionstep. So Actionstep has their own KPIs section. Some people are unaware of this, and it's sitting within the accounting module in Actionstep. So I've got this open here, and essentially, if you've got the accounting module available, you would go to accounting, accounts, and then KPIs to fill in your KPIs for that financial year. And so you can see here that what we've got is your actual hour budgets, your billable hour budgets, and your sales or fees, your fees billed budget. And we draw directly from this page into our Viewpoint reports. And this allows us to then do those sorts of calculations that you see in this report, like a utilization rate or putting that sort of gauge in place. If you don't use the Actionstep KPIs, we can set up an alternate. So often we have clients who will create a spreadsheet that they will manage all of their monthly budgets in, and we can use that just as easily to bring that through into Viewpoint and replace the Actionstep KPI within these calculations. And I guess that draws me to a good point about Viewpoint and Power BI in general, in that it's very flexible in its data sources. So Viewpoint itself has been designed to fit primarily with Actionstep's data export, so that you have minimal minimal extra effort that needs to be required to set up your reports. However, we can obviously do some slight amendments if we want to draw some information from a custom data collection within Actionstep or from an Excel spreadsheet even. And so that allows us to bring that into Power BI. When we are looking at custom reports, this opens up a whole area of different data sources that we could draw from in order to build your report to the best of your needs. And I'll go through some of the custom reporting options towards the end of the session. But this is something that we usually will have a chat with you, a discussion, and scope out your needs in terms of those custom reporting solutions. So that's your time recording. We also have a more granular sort of report where we're looking at your daily time recording figures. So we're looking at your actuals, your billables, your non-billables against that daily budget, which we calculate based on the monthly budget. And within this report, you could look at even down to a specific week or specific day. And you can then compare across fee earners, across weeks, timekeepers, across weeks, across periods, etc., depending on what kind of metrics you want to look at. This is another example of a report with a drill through that will allow me to see those the whole time cards that make up that actual amount. So for example, this amount here, 1.6, I can actually right click on here, drill through to the time entry table, and it's actually going to show those time entries that make up that figure. We have 3 WIP reports that are available, so I won't go into great detail, but essentially we're looking primarily at your WIP balance, your outstanding WIP balance, broken down across timekeeper, across matter type, by each matter themselves, as well as looking at aged groupings, based on how old that WIP actually is. And then we break it down by your fee earners as well, so that you can see exactly how much WIP is sitting for each fee earner, for each timekeeper. The WIP is also brought into another report called the WIP point in time report. In this case, what we're looking at is what your WIP was at the end of each month. So it allows you to see trends in how you're going in generating and billing WIP. So for example, you can see that this one's sitting on December 2021. So that's my total WIP balance at the end of that month, as opposed to what it was with my WIP analysis, which was my current WIP balance. This allows us to do some interesting sort of reporting around WIP movement. So you can see here that I can actually see, it's based on age brackets as well, but I can actually see how I'm going with generating and billing my WIP, and what my WIP balance is sitting at the end of each month. A WIP fees and disbursements report just works with the WIP report, but brings in your disbursements as well, so that you can combine them or separate them out from your WIP. Apart from that, it's got some of this quite a bit more detail on your disbursements as well as your WIP in there. And from a fees and invoicing perspective, we have 6 reports that sit in that section. Fees billed looks primarily at all of the fees that you have billed. Each fee earner has billed, so this is broken down by a fee earner perspective, looking at their sales budget from the KPIs in Actionstep, and then broken down and by each individual fee earner as well. We can also look at it from a client and matter basis, and most of our reports have these 2 distinctions between sort of the fee earner or timekeeper basis and the client and matter basis. And you can see here that we've broken it down by each matter in each client as well. Disbursement detail. So if you're interested in your disbursements, billed or unbilled, you can bring them through into this report, and it gives you all that detail. We have some filters that allow you to switch between whether or not the disbursement has been paid or not, or even if it hasn't been invoiced. You can set all of that in there with the status. And then a disbursements detail screen will go through each individual disbursement, looking at whether or not it's been billed or not, what invoice it ended up on, if it hasn't been billed, how old is it, things like that. So all of that is in one place. And of course, being a table, it can be exported to Excel, and you can play around with this data further. Fees collected, very similar to the fees billed, but we're looking primarily at collections. And what we do here is we actually compare it against the fees billed for the time period so that you can see how quickly you're getting paid from your fees that you're actually billing. And this allows us to then break it down by each fee earner against the budget if necessary, and then look at the collections of those fees billed, whether or not they're within this time period or outside of that time period. We have two debtors reports. One is a simple debtor analysis where we're looking at your outstanding debtor balance. Again, like the WIP report, we separate that into age groupings and break it down by a few other metrics as well. And then we have a debtors point in time report working, again, similar to the WIP point in time report, where we're taking those age groupings, we're looking at a particular time period, and we can then construct a debtor movement report so that you can see how you're going with your debt. So you can see we're obviously generating more debt, which is both a good and a bad thing. And you can see that if that debt is continually getting old or if you are getting paid on a regular basis. And finally, write-offs, which is something that a lot of our clients ask about. We have a fairly detailed write-off report where we look at all the different ways that write-offs could be, done in Actionstep, whether that be adding discounts or premiums at the invoice level, writing off individual time cards, or submitting credit notes or invoice write-offs. And so all of that is there within this report. We separate it out into write-ups and write-downs so that you can separate those out. And we have quite a few different filters so that you can play around with how you want that data to appear, including breaking it down by the billing behavior of the time card, which can be a way that you might do your write-offs, as well as breaking down by the usual fee earner, signed to, client matter, etc. So that is the 16 reports that make up the Viewpoint suite. The 16 current reports, because we're always looking at adding more reports to our suite, and we try to improve them on a consistent basis to make sure that they're meeting our client needs. And we always are happy to receive feedback from our clients on enhancements that we could make to the reports. So I'm just going to go through very quickly some of our custom reporting options. So when we say custom report, we mean we can usually construct anything provided we've got some sort of data source. If the data is available in the Actionstep data export, then we can usually make a report out of it. If the data is available somewhere else, then we will work with you to build that into some form of report, whether that be from an Excel spreadsheet or some other data source. So some of the custom reports that we often get asked about is our individual fee earner report. So an individual fee earner report looks specifically at the data broken down by an individual. And what we can do with this report, and this is just an example, we work with you to build the report to suit your needs. But essentially, we can actually restrict the access to this report based on each individual, and they'll only be able to see their own data. So in this case, if I were the fee earner for Verlata support, I could actually, when I logged in to see this report, I would only see my own data and I would be unable to see anybody else's. But we can add some other, this is obviously a restrictive sort of thing on an individual, but we can allow access to multiple individuals for partners, for management, etc. Up higher levels. So it depends upon what kind of access you want to provide, but we can usually accommodate it. So in this report, you can see we have lots of different metrics similar to what you see in Viewpoint, but we are looking at an individual level. And then we've broken it down. We've got your gauges against your budgets and things like that available. So that's an example of an individual dashboard. We also have a team performance report, which works in a similar way to the individual dashboard. You can see it looks very similar. But in this case, what we're doing is we are creating out some team groupings, which you would usually provide us. You would tell us who's in each team, and then we can then break it down by the fee earner after that. And so this allows you could apply this and give access to a team leader or a practice group manager, and they can then manage their team from this report. Finally, another example is a task tracker. And so if you do use the tasks in Actionstep, you can see all of the tasks that have been completed or due from the system. And then we've broken it down by a number of different things. You can see there's quite a few different pages in this report, including your completed tasks, due tasks, overdue. We've got a heat map so that you can see when tasks are due each week, what's been assigned to who, what's been completed, broken down, and even a full task list so you can see all that detail. And each of these will have, for example, completed tasks will allow you to see breakdown by who's it's been assigned to, and you can see obviously over the different time periods, and compare, month to month, year to year, things like that. And then when we're looking at things like your due tasks, you can manage your workload effectively and see what's coming up. So I can just see all those that are due by a particular person, or I can see, okay, my team has this many tasks that are due this week, that I can then go ahead and manage. So that's an example of the task tracker. So that's the whole Viewpoint suite as well as our custom reports. Just to give you a bit more information, so what we do, we use the Actionstep data export, which will update overnight. So all of the data in our reports is up to date as of close of business the previous day. So if you jump in straight in the morning, all of your data will be up to date. Obviously, we are drawing directly from Actionstep. So if you need to look at your data that's more up to date than that, you can always jump into Actionstep and have a look at it. And that's why we provide things like those Actionstep links so that you can jump straight into Actionstep and view the more up to date information. All right, so I have a few questions that have come through, and I'll just go through some of them. It looks like a few questions are related to cost, which is understandable. So Viewpoint is not included in the Actionstep subscription. It is a separate subscription cost. And it is based on the size of your firm, as in the amount of data that's required and the number of reports that you want to purchase. So generally speaking, we look at our seven reports is usually our standard offering from those 16. But if you choose to purchase all 16, we will usually give you a little bit of a discount. And if you only choose 7 reports initially, we can always add additional reports as we go along. So you can have that little bit of a test of the Viewpoint suite, and then go on from there. So there are a few more questions, but I think I might save those for a bit more detailed email. Although I will say that in terms of accessing Viewpoint, it is done through Power BI. So each user will require a Power BI Pro license, which you can purchase directly from Microsoft, and is usually added onto your Office 365. If you have a high-level Office 365 enterprise sort of agreement, usually Power BI Pro is included in that, but that is a quite expensive option, and you would just need the individual license for each user that wants to access the reports, not each of your Actionstep users. You can actually provide access to Viewpoint to users outside of Actionstep as well. So they just need to have their own email address and a Power BI Pro license. So they don't necessarily need to be one of your Actionstep users. For example, you may want to provide access to an external accountant or IT support person to have a look at that data. Okay, so that looks like all the questions that have come through. So I thank you all for coming and answering those poll questions. They're very, very useful for us to see those answers. And we'll obviously use them to update our reports as necessary. If you are interested in Viewpoint, please go to our website which is should see a link pop up on your screen there to learn more about Viewpoint. And we'll happily set up a sort of more personal demonstration with you where we can go through in detail of your needs, whether that be purchasing Viewpoint as it is, or looking at some of the more custom reporting solutions. So thank you all for attending, and we'll finish the webinar there. And yeah, please get in touch. Thanks, everyone.